I'm thinking that I'm not muted, but let me make sure. Good.
You're all
Okay.
good, Joel. We can hear you.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm Joel Freilich. Been with RTA since 1991. Before that, I lived in Boston, where I was very active in a transit advocacy group that still exists, called the Association for Public Transportation. I was on their board. I was treasurer, and it had a number of functions that were similar to that of CPT. So I do really value having an advocacy group, and part of advocacy always includes support of public transportation in general and support of funding for public transportation, but it also must include engaging with the management of the transit system and expressing opinions about priorities, agreements, and disagreements, all very much a part of the process. So I'm very glad to be your guest tonight. I'm going to take the assumption, and someone else can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to take the assumption that the great majority of you are already very familiar with our proposal, which is at riderta.com/nextgen. So I don't want to take too much of your time by going over what we're proposing, but I'll be happy to elaborate on things that people want to ask about. But the overall theme is that it's a reallocation of an existing level of resources, and the reallocation is proposed in line with the views expressed through public engagement that took place in 2019 through a series of online public engagement plus in-person public engagement at numerous in-person meetings. And the big theme that our riders said to us was that frequency of service on main routes is of paramount importance to riders. And that aligned well with the expert opinion that we were receiving from our consultant, Jarrett Walker and Associates, who was able to show the community and show the staff that by far and away, when you're finally done with work and you really want to be home, or you're finally done with procuring your groceries or your pharmacy supplies or your services that you rendered, that you got from a medical facility, you now are done and you want to be home. And you'd like to be home soon. And in this county, in most instances, the fastest way you're going to be home is if you're lucky enough to have an automobile totally at your disposal, sitting right outside that place, and you're going to get in your car and go home. And a quick look at Google Get Directions will show you that you will get home very quickly that way. It's slower to get home by public transportation. It's going to take you longer to get home, but RTA can help minimize that or mitigate that by providing frequent service. And the key factor in how soon you'll be home is not so much whether once you get to your home neighborhood you'll walk 5 or 10 minutes, not even whether you'll walk 5 or 15 minutes. The key factor in terms of how soon you'll be home is how often is the bus running near that workplace or that medical appointment or that grocery store or wherever it is that you got something done that you needed to have done. So frequency is what the community asked for, and frequency is what the consultant showed us is really the best way to get people to have more free time to be where they want to be. So at the same time, we did talk to the community about, to what extreme would the community want frequency? Because the consultant pointed out that if you're willing to give up maybe 10 of the 59 municipalities of Cuyahoga County and just never go there, you can get a whole lot of frequency with existing resources. And the public told us resoundingly that they do not want that to happen. It isn't so much that the residents of Strongsville and North Royalton and Westlake came to our meeting and said, don't take away our service. No, that wasn't really where the sound came from. The big sound came from the residents of Cleveland and Lakewood and Cleveland Heights, who were saying, please don't take your route to Strongsville or Brecksville or Westlake off the map, because I might need to go there to work someday, and I don't want to take away that opportunity that I might need someday. So the community was saying, yes, you might be able to take service off a particular street that's near another street, but in the same neighborhood, but you can't take whole areas off the transit map. So that's what people told us. We've drawn maps to make that, and of course that we had help with the consultants drawing that map. We made only a few improvements to what the consultant came up with, and that's what's on our website right now. I have that screen open in another browser, so if we decide that it's helpful, somebody can kind of coach me through sharing that screen. And if I fail at that, I'll ask Dana to open it up on her screen and share her screen.
Either way works.
Yeah. So I don't want to talk too much, and many of you guys are familiar with things, but I will tell you that we're providing more frequent service we're shifting resources, taking them off of certain streets, but in order to make that, I'll mention a few. For example, our proposal does not run a bus on East 55th or East 79th. It moves those resources so there are more buses on East 105th, as well as on the cross streets that cross East 55th and 79th. They all get more service. St. Clair does, Superior does, Kinsman does, Euclid retains its frequent service. So that gives you an idea of the kinds of things that are happening. But it's been well publicized, I'm sure, and I hope it will come up tonight. There's some discussion about Route 81, Lakeview Terrace, and so I'm happy to hear that, although I've read it, but I'm happy to hear if people wish to express it in their own words. But let's talk about some of the benefits on the west side. In exchange for some of these sacrifices, some interesting positive things happen. For example, Madison and Lakewood ends up not only with 30-minute service instead of hourly, but they also end up with a route that extends all the way into Steelyard Commons and through Tremont and downtown, which they currently don't have on Madison. Service gets more frequent on Detroit and on Lorraine, just as a few examples. Also on West 117th and Bel Air and Purtis, service gets more frequent. Also, midday service on Clifton gets more frequent. Also, Clifton changes from a 6-day route to a 7-day route. Madison changes from a 5-day route to a 7-day route. So there are a lot of improvements. Those are just a few highlights. Cedar Road, people going out to jobs on Cedar Road or Mayfield Road will find not only that those services run more frequently on weekdays, but also that if they live in the city, their intercity bus, so to speak, may continue all the way out to suburban jobs without the need for a transfer. So if people who live on Huff right now, the route on Huff never leaves Cleveland, but under our proposal it does, and serves all the jobs on Mayfield. The route on Quincy today does not leave the city of Cleveland, but under our proposal it does leave the city of Cleveland, and after visiting Euclid and 105, goes all the way out to all the jobs on Cedar. The bus on Lorraine today does not leave the city of Cleveland, but under our proposal it goes out to the Westgate Transit Center in Fairview Park after serving Cam's Corner and Fairview Hospital. The Clifton bus, which today doesn't go beyond the Westgate Transit Center, is proposed to go all the way out to the Great Northern Mall and to the end of Lorraine, where Lorraine meets the county line. So these are just proposals, but again, I think you guys are somewhat familiar, so I'd really rather pause and let your moderator take questions and comments, because proposals are not final, and I really want to hear from you guys.
All right, again, like Chris said, you can either write something in the chat box. You could raise your hand using the reactions on Zoom, or I can look through here and see if I see anyone actually raising their hand, and I'll ask you to unmute.
Just a couple things. Could we put the map on the screen so people can see it? I don't know if you're able to do that. I know people have the link.
Yeah, I can do. So Joel, if I make you a co-host, are you able to share? Do you feel confident?
Would you like to give it a try?
Yeah. All right. You now have the power. So the green button at the bottom, share screen. It's all you.
Okay. It's just a minute. I'll hit more. Let's see.
And while Joel is pulling up the map, do we have anyone by chance from Mayor Frank Jackson's office or County Executive Budish's office on the call? Okay. I just want to ground the conversation because, as Joel mentioned, this is reallocating resources under the current RTA budget. And I wanted to highlight the fact that this proposal will bring 100% increase in people that are within a half-a-mile walk of high-frequency service. So people that live near a bus service that comes every 15 minutes. Without any increase in the budget, there's 100% increase, so it doubles how many people live within half a mile of frequent transit. And the other thing I want to highlight is there's an expanded funding concept where if RTA got 25% more in their budget, 250% more people would live near frequent transit. So I just wanted to highlight, you know, if anyone from the mayor's or the county executive's office was on the call, because they're ultimately responsible for appointing the majority of the RTA board and ultimately responsible for the authority of going to the ballot and getting more funding for the expanded funding concept for the redesign. So I just want to highlight that fact that, you know, there are trade-offs in this redesign, and CPT supports the expanded funding concept and would like to see the mayor and county executive be more verbal about the support for the expanded funding concept as well. So maybe they'll join us next time.
Thanks, Chris. And thanks, Joel. That map looks good.
Okay. And I'm thinking, oops, I overdid it.
It's okay.
Give me a second.
Okay.
What you have here is the proposal. Oh, thanks a lot. I'm getting a little error message, but that's okay. So what you have here is a proposal right now. I'm not going to be quick enough to go back and forth between our existing network and this proposed network, but as was just stated, the number of people living near some red line. So what we got here is a red line indicates that during all day on weekday, including the morning rush hour, the afternoon rush hour, and all the time in between, there is always at least 15-minute or better service any street that's colored red. If this were an existing network with what we're running today, there would be very few red lines. There would be red on the parts of the rapid transit system that run 15 minutes or better, which includes the red line and the portion of the blue and green line out to Shaker Square. And the only other red roads would be on the west side, only West 25th, and nothing else is red today. But under our proposal, additional lines that turn red, signifying 15-minute or better service, include all of Detroit out to the Westgate Transit Center, all of Lorraine out to the Westgate Transit Center. And on the east side, all you have today that's red is really the 15 line on Harvard and Union. But what would be added is Broadway out to the Broadway Miles intersection would be red. Oh, by the way, the Health line, of course, would remain red, is red today. Superior would turn red, St. Clair would turn red, East 140th would turn red, East 105th would turn red. And that all in addition to the fact that these lines would get longer in many cases, providing people an opportunity to not transfer. Now let's look at blue. If this were an existing map, there would only be a few blue lines. Midday, only a few more lines beyond the red would be blue. In fact, many would be green. It's indicating 45-minute service, and you can see that when you go to Next Gen RTA. Gray is hourly service. Gray means we'd really like to not make it, we want it to be possible for you to get there. There are so few going there that we really can't justify service more than once an hour, but we don't want to cut that community off. So we would still have a few gray lines, as you can see here. But some things would change from gray to blue. For example, on the west side, that West 117th Street line, in the eastern part of, you can see, if you see the Lakewood label, it's just east of that. That would turn 30 minutes. And another line leading all the way from Lakewood Park, the 83 leading all the way from Lakewood Park down through the city of Cleveland and all the way south to Tri-C West would become a 30-minute all-day line under this proposal. Ridge Road would be combined, a portion of Ridge with a portion of Fulton, so as to get the strongest part of both routes. And by doing that, 30-minute service. So Cedar Road would upgrade to 30. Mayfield would upgrade to 30. Huff would upgrade to 30. You know, it gets a lot more. I just asked me to open the map for a reason, so maybe there is a question or a comment that he wants to make.
We've got a couple questions in the chat here, or comments at least. So Justine, I can read these out, or I can have the people, you can speak them yourself. So I guess I'll ask, see if Justine wants to unmute. If not, I can read that for you.
Okay, well, yeah, it just, I've seen a lot of people waiting at the West Park station, transferring from the 75 to the 22, and this way they wouldn't have to do it. 22 would continue on, which I think is really good, really necessary. And I think one of the buses goes to inside to Edgewater Park, and I think access to the parks is really important. More people are using the parks now, and also it's that 78 now that goes down 117th. There's so many businesses on that route. I think that's great to have more frequent service on that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Justine. Chris Martin.
Sure. So Joel, you referenced new number 25, like the Madison line, I guess.
Yes.
So from looking at the map, so it goes over the highway from downtown. Is that correct?
Yes, under our proposal, the Madison line would not go it would cease to travel west of the Westgate Transit Center. It would cease to do that.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about it's downtown terminus.
Sure, I'm gonna go into that.
Okay.
I just want to say yes. It would cease to travel further west. It would leave the work to the west of that would still be done by selected 26 trips that would go out there. But anyway, but radically it would change east of Lakewood. So it would stay on Madison and not turn on Berea. It would not end at the West 98th area. It would stay on Madison all the way to West 65th, drop down using West 65th to Clark, go east on Clark all the way to, the name to, I think, to about West 14th, correct. And then it would go to Steelyard Commons and then serve the Tremont neighborhood via Quigley. And then go from there as quickly as possible downtown, and by as quickly as possible, I mean via the freeway, via the I-90 bridge.
Yeah, so I guess that part's my concern.
Correct. And let me just let you know that thank you for that concern. We have heard it from CPT and from others, and it's a legitimate concern, because when it takes the fastest route downtown, that means there isn't a single one direct non-transfer trip from places like Lutheran Hospital in that general area, residents in that general area, to directly to Steelyard Commons. There's an indirect way to go, like down West 25th as far as Clark and get on the 25, or go downtown with a stop on the, on the 26 fairly quickly and transfer. Again, with frequency, you can make your transfers more effectively, but there are some people who say, yeah, but what I really like to do is not transfer. And so I do appreciate that. Well, let me let you talk, but you have, that point has been made really clear to us, and it's one that we need to weigh and give a lot of thought to.
Yeah, well, my concern, I know the concern has been raised about with Lakeview Terrace and that access. That's not what I'm even referring to right now, though. I'm thinking back to the old 81 when it went over the Lorraine Carnegie Bridge and stopped at the Red Line station there in Ohio City.
Yep.
I think that's an important connection to connect the Red Line effectively to Steelyard.
Okay. That's really interesting. So let me add that to our hopper and make sure our planners are thinking about that also. You're just reminding us that we already know that the 81 today crosses the Detroit Superior Bridge. We know that the 25 extension, which is largely replacing the 81 in this area, is proposed to go over the I-90 bridge. And what you're pointing out to us is that we also ought to think about crossing the Lorraine Carnegie Bridge. And we'll
Correct.
certainly give that some thought. So I appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you.
If we can jump stack, sorry guys, a little bit. Akshay Singh, I know that you needed to jump off to go to the other event with Noble tonight. And anyone else that needs to jump off, please let me know. If you either want me to say your piece or if you want to, I can kind of prioritize you. But I'll let Akshay go ahead.
Oh, it was, I don't know if this, like what kind of numbers this would be, but I was just in the chat, noticing that the 7's going to be shifted. Obviously, I think a good thing based on its frequency at once an hour before. Was just going to ask, like we've talked previously about going to different entities for funding. I'm just trying to figure out, like, if we're talking about adding even, say, like a half-hour frequency bus route, in this case, say between Superior Rapid Stop and like Shaker Square going down Coventry north-south. Yeah, what kind of cost would that need to get covered? And when we go out to ask for money from whether it's state, county, different cities, this is just in a particular case, but even with Lakeview.
Yeah, so right now, as we listen to these proposed shifts of resources and we hear comments and concerns, our first thought is that what we have to do is have to say, well, is there one of these frequencies that we should not do or postpone in order to preserve, operating on a street? So we're really thinking in terms of, not in terms of dollars. We are not thinking in terms of dollars. We're thinking in terms of bus hours and how we move them around the schedule. So I don't really have any big answers for you about dollars. I did mention Coventry, and it's not what I thought you were going to say. We have in the past run on Coventry. That's a really low yield proposition. And we have tried to run things between Shaker Square on top of, we have a 48 to connect Shaker Square. And when we've tried running a different route or an additional route, we've had very poor luck with that. We are paying some more attention to Monticello and North Taylor because there have been some kudos for that proposal and also some concerns. So we're looking into that area as well. But anyway, so yeah, Coventry would not be my first priority. Probably my first priority would be either more frequency or perhaps slightly fewer sacrifices to get those frequencies. So yeah, I don't. Did that answer your question adequately, or do you want to follow up?
He said he was. Let's see. Akshay said was just looking for thought on how to get to $sign for RTA. Let's see all.
Yeah, well, that's let's. Yeah. That's a big political decision. I don't know whether we'll get more federal funds with the new administration that comes in, but that's a big political question that I don't know. I can certainly promise you we'll spend it well if we get it.
Good to hear. Okay, Lou, you're next on stack.
Hi, I really appreciate Joe taking his personal time to come here to have this presentation.
Yeah.
Right now, because I have to leave for another meeting very soon, so I will make a 1 point up. Cuyahoga County right now is an Asian county for sure, certified. It's all over the news. Also, the poorest one in the whole country. I'm talking about city of Cleveland. So in this case, the things we consider, it should not be only from the study itself, because Gerald Walker and his associates don't live here. Now, if we use 81 as an example, the area down there, they have to walk up hills a lot, and lots of them are senior citizens having disabilities. Some of them even taking care of grandchildren, and the grandchildren could be still very young as toddlers. They even need stroller. So this making them to even go up hills from only weekends to 7 days a week, it doesn't sound too nice. That will give the people the impression that Gerald Walker and Associates, their guideline, their principle, have been misused. So I wish GCRTA reconsider all these changes. Otherwise, the 25 connects would just look like a smoke screen to camouflage cutting services. That will be what people think of RTA. In that case, that's another obstacle to prevent you putting the items on the ballot for a better, higher levy to enrich the service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you, Lou. And you know, you're welcome. As far as my spending my personal time, I don't think you quite understand how much I enjoy this. So, so I don't mind at all. I think my family might be a little inconvenienced because I told them they don't have the living room.
We love you, but the thing is, I don't know if we can love RTA as much as we love you. That's all where the problem is.
Well, we're working on it.
Bye.
We're working on it. Bye-bye.
Hi, Lou. Okay, Alex Rubin.
Thanks. Hi, Joel. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Pleasure. So my question is a little more philosophical. I know that in transit planning, there's a little bit of for sort of mature systems like the RTAs, there's a chicken and the egg problem of, you know, you use existing ridership to determine where people are going. And then if there's places that the existing system isn't serving, then how do you know that people really want to go there, et cetera? And how does that how did your team and the consultants tackle that with the longstanding sort of severing the east side from the west side in terms of transit? You know, I still, you know, this is a very radial system, but it would be, you know, fairly simple, although the routes would be long, to connect, you know, a east side route with the west side route crossing over one of the bridges downtown. Just wondering what the thought process was on the RTA side about this.
Well, so thank you for your question, Alex, and thank you for joining us. Look, we actually don't have to speculate about that because we've actually tried it. We have tried running routes, pick a west side arterial that's coming to downtown, pair it up with something on the east side, turn it into a single route. We did it. In fact, we did that with 6 routes not terribly long ago, and made them into 3 long routes. And here's what we found. The drawback. The drawback was that the route got very, very long, and so if it was held up at some point, it would run late and continue to run late on the other side of the town, and people would miss their connections. So that was a big drawback. And then here's the real thing. The fruit really didn't happen, because here's what happens. So we took the route on Detroit, and since Detroit and Superior are really kind of the same street, we thought, okay, let's make the Detroit route and the Superior route one route. Kind of makes sense. But what happens is this: if somebody has a job on the west side of town on Detroit, and they live on the east side, and there are 100 of them, they don't all live on any one of those east side routes. In fact, so some will live some need the St. Clair bus to finish their trip, some need the Superior bus, some need the Euclid bus, some need the Kinsman bus, some need the Broadway bus, some need the Quincy bus. And what happens is all you could do is help one of those 6 groups that I mentioned. The others are still transferring, and their transfers now become unreliable. So when they're going in the other direction, They come up Broadway, they're waiting for their bus to go out Detroit. But because it came down Superior first and got hung up somewhere, it's not a reliable connection anymore. So what we have found is that the people are best served if the downtown acts as a hub and everything comes in and everything goes out. And if it's during a frequent service time like weekday, which we hope weekday daytime will all be frequent service, then it'll be coordinated, but even if a coordination misses, it doesn't matter because everything is frequent. And you know, the best kind of transfer to make is from a frequent to a frequent, okay? But as you know, what we already do on Saturdays, and we'll always do this when service is 30 minutes or an hour, no matter, and there'll be fewer such services that are 30 minutes or an hour, but whenever something is every 30 minutes, we try to bring them all down in the, let's say, 10 minutes before the magic number, and then send them all out at the magic number so that people only spend less than 10 minutes waiting for their transfer. And because you bring them all in together, that means that someone who's coming from Detroit on the west side will get a time transfer to the Broadway bus and the Kinsman bus and the Superior bus and the St. Clair bus. So that really works well. It's often, we also hear a comment, it's often not from people who ride regularly, that the big solution is to run service that bypasses downtown altogether. And this was, people tell us we should have, trips just running from, the airport to Southgate, along State Route 17. And unfortunately, it tends not to work. We are going to give one more try at it under our proposal, whereby the bus on Brook Park Road will in fact be the bus that follows Rockside from Broadview all the way to Garfield Mall. So that's a different way of serving Rockside, and that's what we're proposing. And if we don't get a rash of negative comments, that's what we'll go forward with, and we'll see how well that works. But I don't have very high expectations for routes that go cross county and never touch downtown, because we've tried them many, many times. We had a snow Rockside route, didn't work. We tried running a different frequency, different configuration. We had maybe 4 or 5 different varieties, and none of them were popular. So sorry that was a long answer. Let me pause and see if I covered it, and let me know if I didn't.
No, that was a great explanation. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, the next person will be Aaron, and just sort of a heads up, I think we are going to do about 10 more minutes of this. So any last minute questions, get them in now. I've got Aaron, and then after that, I've got a question from Brian Taylor, who looks like he stepped away from the computer, and then Rob. There's Brian. So it's Aaron.
Okay. Hi, Joel. I
Hello.
work at Ursuline College, and I know the stop at Ursuline College was removed several years ago. And we have several students who walk the 30-minute walk across the bridge to Montefiore, and there's no sidewalks in the winter. It's terrible. And so what are some of the factors that are in play for that bus stop to be potentially added back to Ursuline College? Recognizing that we serve a diverse community of students, half our students qualify as Pell eligible for federal low-income funding.
Thank you for the question. I was sad to take the Ursuline service away. We had so few riders. I have walked the bridge myself because several of my medical practitioners are at Brainerd and Cedar. And although I don't have to walk all the way to Lander, I've walked across that bridge. Not fun, 8 lanes of traffic, lots of noise. So I'm familiar with it. The feedback from the public was give very much priority to frequency over going to communities that we don't go to right now. So Ursuline would count, and that whole Cedar Lander area, the jobs there and the students there would count as a place we don't go right now. So we're following the public. But I'll answer the question in a different way. Some university administrations enter into UPass, or Universal Access Pass programs, with the RTA. Some university administrations do that using their general funds. Other universities do that using the students' own funds, which they then put as a plebiscite before the students and ask the students, hey, you all students, would you vote to raise your student activity fee that you pay every semester by X dollars if in exchange every Ursuline student could have a free riding sticker attached to their ID card? So some universities do it that way by plebiscite. And I can certainly tell you, and we have told Ursuline College administration several times over the decades, that we would be interested in that sort of thing. And that could give us enough riders and enough money, mostly enough riders, because it doesn't really give you enough money. You always, RTA is always a contributor to its services. So, but that would definitely change the calculus. So that would be a way to open that discussion.
Great, thank you so much. And who would I follow up with if I'm talking with the president? Who would we follow up with?
I think you could. You certainly could ask the university administrator to contact me directly as a first instance. I'd be happy to. If I need other people, I'll get them involved.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe.
That's awesome. Thank you, Joe. I've got Brian Taylor.
Okay, I think I unmuted myself there.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm concerned about the people, like an earlier warning or an earlier date to change the, make this big change, because some people will find that with this change, they will find that their bus stop half a block away is now 5 blocks away, and the apartment search time probably starts in May, and certainly a few months after that. So rather than a June start date for this change, I would like to see May 1st or April 1st. So April 1st, you see, oh, my bus is gone, I better tell the landlord I'm leaving now, and it's going to take you a month to pack, a lot of people. My other question, maybe they don't have as much art supplies as I do. My other question is, will there be a bus to Akron like once a day?
So the transit system in Akron does even today run several trips between Akron and Cleveland, and I don't make those decisions, but I anticipate that they will continue operating those services. And thank you for your other comment. We probably can't move forward the date from June to April, but your comment is still valuable, because what I can do is try to ensure that the information, the detailed scheduled information about the June service comes out in April. I can aim for that. So that's still a helpful comment. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
And then our last question is from Rob, who doesn't have a microphone right now, so I'll read for him. He said, "Hi, Joel. Thanks so much for joining CPT to talk about the redesign tonight. I'm excited to get 30-minute headways back on the 55, but can you let me know if the 55 is proposed to gain bi-directional peak service? Also, what will peak headways be like? Will that be a change from today?" That's from Rob.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. So the 55 itself, not counting the branches that run peak only, will always be in 2 directions. It'll go all the way out to Great Northern Mall, and as shown in the lower left-hand corner of the map. Rush hour frequency is going to be pretty much the same as today, so that if you're going downtown and you're in an area served by all branches, you should get 4 trips an hour or every 15-minute service. if that becomes, our goal is to get as many streets up to 15 or better as possible. So as soon as I get a street up to 15 or better, my next attention, if I have another dollar, is to try to get another street up to 15 minute or better. And I try to do that before I coax something up from 15 to, let's say, 10. The only exception of that is if the 15 doesn't have enough room on the vehicle, then of course every transit system has to increase frequency because we can't be leaving people behind at stops. So the answer is 15. I think perhaps you knew the answer to that question, but I don't mind saying it again. 15 inbound and pretty much 30 or better outbound. So no direction should ever be less than 30 minutes all day weekday from the morning rush hour through the afternoon rush hour. And the other thing we're trying to do is provide some Sunday service on that route. So I hope that answers it. Again, for all of you who didn't get your questions fully answered, our website does have an add a comment icon in the lower right of the map, really the lower right, almost all the pages of the Next Gen. You can always write your comment in, please do. If you want to write a comment and then go back to the map and look at something else and write another comment, you're welcome to do that. You can write as many as you want. And we encourage that because you're really helping us by making comments. So thanks a bunch.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you,
Chris?
Joel. Yeah, I have one quick question before you hop off, if I may. I know we've been back and forth about the 81 route and Lakeview for a number of years, as you mentioned earlier. We had discussed this last week as CPT and had thought, you know, there's a lot of issues with the deviation as the 81 is currently set up, how it has to loop off the route and loop up to Washington Avenue to Lakeview Tower and then loop back and get back on the route. And it also, as it's structured, doesn't serve the lower Lakeview estates on the bottom of the hill. So some of our members were wondering what it would take to maybe run some kind of a circulator route like used to be run years ago, but maybe you know, having that come up through the flats so it could serve some of the Lakeview terraces towards the bottom of the hill as it's coming up from the flats. And maybe it could be a smaller bus like a trolley. And then the West 25th routes would not have to deviate off of their route to serve Lakeview. So I just wondered if RTA had thought about something like that at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Sure, thank you, Chris. And I read it was a press release that CPT put out, I believe today, was shared with me, and I read it with interest. I never say never. Typically, you know, our costs don't go down when it's a smaller vehicle. If there was really high ridership and a high need, and for some reason a small vehicle could do it and a big vehicle couldn't, then that might make some sense. So I never say never. I mean, I didn't read this until this afternoon. It's much too soon to respond completely. But I do think that even under, I will say, although we're not married to our current proposal, it is important to mention that I believe that even if we ended up, and I don't know if we will, implementing our proposal exactly as written, I do believe it's a net benefit for residents of that housing project, not just in the tower. I think it's a net benefit because Detroit is relatively nearby, and it will be a much more useful route with both high frequency as well as extension to more destinations. And we're strengthening West 25th Street as well, Lorraine. So it really is a net benefit. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to look at other things, but I wanted to let you know, I think it's a good proposal for Lakeview. If I thought it was a big loss, a net loss of value to that housing project, I don't think I would be advocating it. I do think it's a net benefit. And those who have more difficulty with mobility tend to be eligible for paratransit, which And paratransit service has greatly improved its customer service on all dimensions, very dramatically just in the last year, with much less people wait on the phone to make a reservation for half a minute instead of half an hour. People are on the vehicle. Most of them are on the vehicle less than 45 minutes, and that wasn't true before. So it's a dramatically improved service. So, but thank you for your comment. As I say, when I read something this afternoon, there's no way I can be sure that it's a bad idea or a good idea that quickly.
Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time, Joel. And we'll talk soon.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Joel.
All right, I'm going to say goodbye if it's time, okay? And just say
right.
thank you very, very much for your time. You guys are, this is my job, and many of you are donating your time as well. So I appreciate that.
Well,
So
thanks to you and thanks to your family for putting up with us.
all right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right.